All right, so strap yourselves in, folks. Today's deep dive, it's a bit of a head scratcher. We're looking into the Planck Length Professor. And yeah, it's as wild as it sounds. We've got these like outlines for a potential anime series, and let me tell you, it gets pretty intense.
It really does. And what's fascinating to me is how it takes these like super complex scientific ideas, like the Planck length and all that quantum entanglement stuff, and it weaves them into this really personal story about grief and about like the lengths we'd go to for a second chance,
Yeah, it's like super heavy stuff, but also kind of mind-blowing. So first up, we've got Isaac, right? Our main guy, he's this physics professor, brilliant, but a bit of a loner, maybe?
Oh, totally. Definitely gives off those, like, absent-minded genius vibes. And the way the story sets it up, it's like his whole world revolves around his work and his daughter, Emily. Their bond is, like, incredibly strong.
Right. And there's this scene in the first episode, I think, where Isaac's explaining the Planck length to his students. And he describes it as this: the smallest possible measurement, the ultimate limit of reality. I mean, wow, my brain kind of just, like, stopped working for a second there.
I know, right? The Planck length, it's like this concept that just messes with your head, doesn't it? Like trying to picture something that small, it forces you to think about like the limits of our perception, and how much we just don't and maybe can't understand about the universe.
Yeah, it's wild. And it's kind of interesting how that whole concept ties into Isaac's grief later on, right? Like it's almost as if he's searching for meaning in these like the tiniest possible units of existence, you know what I mean? Trying to grasp at something, anything, after this huge loss.
Oh, absolutely. And it's that search, that desperation that drives him, well, kind of pushes him over the edge, you could say. Tragedy strikes when Emily is, she's assaulted and killed, and Isaac's just, shattered. The way they describe his grief, it's raw, all-consuming. You almost feel like you're right there with him, watching him spiral as he becomes fixated on the Planck length, convinced that it holds the key to bringing Emily back.
Okay, so now my science-loving brain is really short-circuiting here. I mean, how can something that tiny, how could it possibly connect to something as big as life and death?
Well, that's where the story takes this leap right into science fiction territory. It suggests that through his intense research, fueled by grief, of course, Isaac stumbles upon this hidden code, this structure woven into the very fabric of reality that grants him these quantum abilities.
Hold on, powers?
Yeah.
Like actual superpowers? I mean, are we talking like Marvel comics here?
It's more complicated than that. It's not just like boom, superpowers. His abilities, they're rooted in his understanding of quantum mechanics. Specifically, manipulating quantum entanglement, which you remember that spooky action at a distance thing Einstein talked about.
Vaguely, yeah. Like those particles, they're linked. Even when they're like miles apart, it's always kind of blown my mind.
Right. So imagine Isaac somehow figured out how to manipulate those connections, those links between particles. The story is suggesting he can move objects with his mind, teleport matter, even change the structure of things at a subatomic level.
Whoa. Okay, that's not just like, moving a coffee cup with your mind. That's like rearranging the atoms of the cup itself. I mean, what would that even do, to the world, to everything?
And that is the question, right? That starts to emerge as the story unfolds. If Isaac can really manipulate matter at the Planck scale, the smallest level imaginable, well, the implications are kind of terrifying if you think about it. Rewriting the laws of physics, maybe even creating new elements, altering the flow of time even? I mean, who knows?
Wow, that's getting really heavy. And all because he's just trying to bring his daughter back, right? It makes you think it's not just about the limits of physics, is it? It's about the limits of grief. The limits of what a father would do for his child.
Exactly. It really makes you question those ethical boundaries we put on science, doesn't it? Even with the best intentions, how far is too far? Can we really justify messing with the very forces that hold the universe together?
And that's a question that kind of haunts Isaac throughout this whole thing. I mean, he starts having these visions of Emily. He's convinced she's reaching out to him from beyond. And he's torn, right, between this burning desire for revenge against her attackers and this scientific pursuit of resurrection. It's like a constant battle between his heart and his head.
And that struggle, that internal conflict, that's what really grabs you, I think. We see Isaac grappling with these huge moral questions while simultaneously pushing the limits of science further than, anyone ever thought possible. It's a recipe for some pretty mind-bending possibilities as his powers grow.
And from the looks of these outlines, things are about to get even more, out of control. We've only just dipped our toes into Isaac's story, and his quest to bring Emily back, it's already starting to unravel the fabric of reality itself. Talk about a deep dive, right?
So picking up where we left off, we've got Isaac teetering on the edge of, well, a scientific breakthrough, but also a total moral meltdown.
It's a lot. Yeah, my head's still spinning from like all those quantum repercussions we were talking about. I mean, the idea that one person's grief could like unravel the entire universe, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole story so chilling. It takes this very human emotion, grief, and turns it into like this catalyst for, well, almost cosmic horror, you could say. And season 2, it dives headfirst into those consequences.
And it's not just about Isaac and Emily anymore, right? We're talking like global, maybe even universal stakes now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just look at the titles for episodes 8 through 10, Quantum Repercussions. Just reading that sends shivers down my spine. They're hinting at, like, anomalies, distortions in reality, even, like, threats to the very fabric of space-time.
So he's not just playing God with Emily's life anymore. It's like he's messing with, well, with everything. Okay, I think I need a quick refresher here. Like, how does this entanglement thing actually work? If he's messing with the links between particles on that level, how does that translate to, like, tearing holes in the universe?
Okay, think of it this way, right? Remember those invisible strings we were talking about earlier? The ones connecting those particles. Well, imagine they're not just connecting particles. They're like holding the fabric of reality together.
Okay, I'm listening.
And Isaac, through those powers he's got, he's like tugging at those strings, maybe even breaking them. Who knows?
So every time he tries to like manipulate matter at the Planck length, it's like a tiny little earthquake shaking the foundations of, well, everything.
That's a great way to put it. And the story really uses that metaphor to explore, like, how everything in the universe is connected. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Isaac's actions, they're driven by this deep love for Emily, right? But they're creating this ripple effect that could, well, unravel the laws of physics as we know them.
Whoa, this is heavy stuff. But it makes you think, right? If everything really is connected on that level, then our actions, our emotions, even our thoughts, I mean, they must have some kind of impact, right?
That's a question philosophers have been wrestling with forever, and this story, it tackles it head on. It's science fiction, but it makes you think about the real world in a whole new way.
For sure. But back to Isaac for a sec.
Yeah.
He's got to realize all this chaos is happening because of him, right? Does he just, like, ignore it? Keeps pushing forward with his experiments, consequences be damned.
And that's where Rebecca, his colleague, she becomes super important. Remember, she's been the voice of reason this whole time, right? Worried about Isaac and about what his work could unleash.
Yeah, she was like the only one who could, I don't know, bring him back from the edge. Does she, like, confront him about all this? About these quantum repercussions?
Oh, yeah. And their relationship, it really takes center stage in season 2. It goes beyond just professional concern. It's clear she cares about him deeply, and she's terrified of what he's becoming. It's kind of like, Oppenheimer and those anxieties he had after creating the atomic bomb.
So she's like his moral compass, trying to guide him through this storm of grief and ambition.
Exactly. She's the voice of responsibility, constantly reminding him about the consequences, about the potential destruction he's risking. It's a tough job.
But is Isaac even listening at this point? He's so obsessed with bringing Emily back. Does he even care about the damage he's causing?
Well, the story doesn't paint him as, like, this evil villain, He's still that grieving father. But his judgment, it's clouded by desperation. He's blinded by love, you could say. Yeah. And that makes him dangerous.
It's like he can't see the forest for the trees. He's so focused on Emily, he's blind to the destruction he's leaving in his wake.
And that's the real tragedy, isn't it? Even with the purest intentions, even with the power to, like, literally reshape reality, he's still human. He can still make mistakes. And those mistakes, well, they could have unimaginable consequences.
Okay, this is getting really intense. I can't even imagine what Rebecca must be going through. I mean, I'm freaking out just thinking about it. So, like, how does she try to stop him? Does she, like, appeal to his logic? To his humanity?
From what the outlines suggest, she tries everything. She lays out the scientific evidence, the cold, hard facts about the damage he's causing. She reminds him of Emily, of the kind of person she was, saying she'd never want him to destroy the world in her name. She even tries to get other scientists involved, create some kind of, intervention or something.
It's like she's fighting a war on two fronts.
Yeah.
Right. Against Isaac's recklessness and against the forces he's unleashed. If I were in her shoes, I don't know if I'd have the strength to keep going.
It really shows her strength of character, doesn't it? She never gives up on him, even when all hope seems lost. And those efforts, well, they do have an impact on Isaac, as we'll see in part 3. They play a big role in his ultimate journey.
Okay, now I'm really on the edge of my seat. Does Isaac finally see the light? Does he listen to Rebecca? And what about that final attempt to bring Emily back? So many questions. All right, so deep breaths, everyone. We're back, and things are about to get, well, pretty intense. I mean, last we left off, Isaac was about to make his final attempt to bring Emily back, right? After all that, all those quantum repercussions, the stakes are, well, they're kind of through the roof.
It's a culmination of everything, right?
Yeah.
His grief, his brilliance, his obsession, and the weight of, well, the entire universe may be resting on his shoulders.
It's a lot to handle for sure. And I keep picturing Rebecca there right beside him. Can you imagine the pressure, knowing that what he's about to do could, like, destroy everything?
It's got to be, like, the ultimate test of loyalty, right?
Yeah.
But the outlines, they suggest that she never wavers. She's there till the very end. And this time it's different. The energy surrounding Isaac's experiment, it's like he's crossed some kind of line, pushing his powers to their absolute limit.
So the big question, right? Does he actually do it? Does he bring Emily back?
Yeah.
Part of me doesn't even want to know, because even if he succeeds, what kind of world is left, you know?
It's a question that haunts the entire episode, the final attempt. And the way they describe it, it's almost surreal. Isaac, he's bathed in this blinding light, quantum energy, it's swirling all around him. And slowly, Emily's form starts to solidify.
Okay, so he pulls it off. He actually, like, reconstructs her, atom by atom. I mean, what must that feel like? After all that work, all that sacrifice, relief, triumph, or is there something else? Something darker, maybe?
From what the outline suggests, a whole wave of emotions hits him, but triumph, no, that's not one of them. He reaches for Emily, her recreated form. It's flawless, perfect even, but there's no life, no warmth.
So even with all that power, he can't bring back what's truly lost. It's like you can rebuild the body, but the spark, the essence is just gone.
And that realization, it just crushes him. It's like this moment of pure disillusionment. There's even a line of dialogue. He whispers it almost to himself. Even with all this power, life, it's beyond me.
Wow, that's heavy. It's like he's finally admitting defeat, not just to the laws of physics, but to life itself, to the whole idea of, like, playing God.
It's a turning point for sure. Up until now, he's been driven by his intellect, by his need to fix things, to control things. But in this moment, facing the stark reality of his failure, he's stripped bare. All that's left is this raw, overwhelming grief.
And Rebecca, is she still there watching this all unfold?
She is. But she's giving him space, letting him process it all. There's no judgment, just, well, empathy, I guess. A shared understanding of the pain he's going through.
That's got to be powerful, that silent support. So what happens next? I mean, does Isaac just give up after coming so close? Does he just, like, collapse under the weight of it all?
That's where the story takes a surprising turn, actually. The final episode, it's called Acceptance. And it shifts away from all that, like, the spectacle of quantum powers, and focuses on Isaac's internal journey. He lets go of his ambition, of his need to find these impossible solutions, and he starts to find comfort in simpler things.
Like what?
Like revisiting Emily's favorite places, rereading her childhood stories, just like allowing himself to grieve without the need to fix it or to understand it.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's like this brilliant scientist, humbled by the vastness of his loss, finding peace in, like, the smallest, most human things.
Exactly. And there's this scene near the end. Isaac visits Emily's grave,
Yeah.
and he speaks to her. His words just carried away by the wind. He says, "I see now, some things can't be controlled. You're free, Emily."
Powerful stuff. It's like he's finally letting go of her and of this impossible burden he's been carrying.
And in that letting go, there's a sense of peace, a recognition that some things are just beyond our control. It's a bittersweet ending for sure. It starts with this man determined to defy the very laws of nature, but ends with his acceptance of, well, the natural order of things.
It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, there's still beauty to be found, right? In those quiet moments of reflection, in accepting what we can't change.
It's a story that stays with you long after it's over. It makes you think about those big questions, about grief, about ambition, about the limits of our power, and ultimately about finding meaning in a universe that often feels, well, pretty indifferent to our suffering.
Wow, what a journey. We started with the Planck Length, this tiny unit of measurement, and ended up exploring, well, the vastness of the human heart, I guess.
It's a reminder that even in a world obsessed with technology, with progress, there's still something profoundly human about our need to grieve, to love, to find meaning in the face of loss. It's a story that, well, it transcends science fiction, I think. It offers a glimpse into the enduring power of the human spirit.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to hear from you. What did you think? What resonated with you? Share your thoughts, your interpretations, your own deep dives into the themes this story explores. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.
This is The Deep Dive, signing off.